and welcome back to the most amazing channel on the internet. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today we're talking about the top 10 scary tomb messages. These are like messages found in tombs that have really creeped people out, and I know that you're an audience of most amazing people who love to be creeped out, so why don't you show me that you love this kind of content by liking this video and sharing it with a friend. Also, why don't you leave me a comment and let me know if you would leave a funny message on your grave or a scary one. Funny or scary, basically the only options. I feel like scary is quite appealing as I enjoy freaking people out, but I'm also up for funny because I just prefer to make people smile. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and also while you're down there, why don't you check out our description box and our social media links to all of the people that went into making this video. Alright, scary tombs, what you got? Coming in at number 10, we have William Shakespeare's grave. Billy Bob Shakespeare is one of my favourite historical figures of all time for many reasons, but mainly because I loved his drama. William Shakespeare died in 1616 and wrote 39 plays, 154 sonnets, and 2 long narrative poems. My favourite Shakespeare play is probably The Winter's Tale. It's a classic problem play and I really enjoy it, but I also do love Macbeth as a close second. So as we know, the famous English writer had a flair for drama and a great sense of humour. With that in mind, of course he decided to place a curse on his grave. He's buried at the Holy Trinity Church in his home of Stratford-upon-Avon. On his grave he wrote, "Good friends, for love's sake forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be man spares these stones, and cursed be he who moves my bones." Good on you, Bill. You don't want anyone messing with your bones, I feel you. When the church was restored in 2008, care was taken to keep his bones safe. I might just curse my own grave so that I don't end up getting thrown out in the trash. Good thinking. Coming in at number 9, we have the SHUGBOROUGH inscription. The thing is about this tomb message is that we have no idea what it says. The SHUGBOROUGH monument can be found in the grounds of Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire in England. The monument depicts the shepherds of Arcadia, in which shepherds stand around a tomb. Now the monument contains a very cryptic message that reads OUOSVAVV, and this is framed by the letters D and M. A lot of people that think that this is a code, and the monument is regularly hailed as one of the world's top unsolved ciphers. Adding to the mystery, fingers of the stone's figurines touch the letters N and R on the phase et in Arcadia EGO. So what does this mean? Some of the world's top minds, Charles Darwin and Charles Dickens included, have actually failed to solve the text. Coming in at number 8, we have the cursed tablets. In 2003, 4 cursed tablets were found in the grave of a young woman who died around 2,400 years ago in Greece. Brilliant. Back in the day, it seems that cursed tablets were very popular, and people would inscribe curses on metal and offer them to the gods. Burying tablets with the dead was believed to give the tablets direct access to the gods, who would then decide to do the curse's bidding. The curses were aimed at then local innkeepers Demetrios and Fangoria. One of the curses found in the grave read, "Cast your hate upon Fangora and Demetrios, and their tavern and their property and their possessions. I will bind my enemy in blood and ashes with all the dead." Blimey. Another one of the curses found in the grave wished a dog ear curse upon them. Of course. From dog curses to donkey curses up at number 7. The Egyptians, as we know, were a scary bunch when it came to protecting their final resting places. Well, it seems that a donkey curse was famously found on the tomb of Der El Bari Graffito. The donkey curse invoked the god Seth, a donkey who would rape those who violated the tomb. We hear a lot about how the curse of King Tut came true, but we have no idea if the curse here came true because nobody wants to admit that they got harassed by a donkey, do they? Coming in at number 6, we have AMENHOTEP'S shopping list. The ancient Egyptians were so dramatic, including Amenhotep, son of Hapu, who died in 1300 BC. In life, he was a priest and a scribe, and a lover of melodrama, I bet. He inscribed one of the more inventive curses that I've ever read on the doors of his final resting place. This curse actually kind of made me laugh. It reads like a shopping list of plague and pestilence. He wrote, "He who enters this tomb will lose their earthly possessions and honours, be incinerated in a furnace, in excretion of rites, capsize, drown at sea, have no successors, receive no tomb or funerary offerings of their own, and their bodies would decay, because they will starve and have no sustenance, and their bones will perish." Good! Great! You get a car. No, you get a car. No, you get a car. Plagues everywhere. Coming in at number 5, we have this warning. I can't think of anything scarier than going to visit the tombstone of a loved one and finding these tasteless warning signs. Councillors in Plymouth in England placed garish yellow warning signs on the graves that they had deemed unsafe or hazardous. Basically, they were worried that they were going to topple over at some point. I'm all about preventing some danger, but honestly, bright yellow signs that cover the name of the person buried, for me it's a bit of an eyesore. Mourner Paul Ford found his grandparents' grave had one of the signs on and spoke out about how disrespectful it was, and how the message could have been at the back of the grave. True. Coming in at number 4, we have spooky old Midnight Mary. It seems that a very scary message can be found on a grave at the Evergreen Cemetery in New Haven. The inscription is actually a very ghostly warning. The grave belongs to Mary E. Hart, who died under strange circumstances in 1872. Around the top of her grave reads, "The people shall be troubled at midnight and pass away." It seems that Mary was considered somewhat of a witch in her era, and some even say that she haunts the New Haven graveyard to this day, taking souls to the underworld with her if they're by her grave at the stroke of midnight. Of course, these are probably just urban legends made up to match her spooky gravestone, although I still wouldn't want to be around at midnight just in case. You were waiting for him, here he is. Coming in at number 3, we have King Tut's Terror. Do not disturb an ancient Egyptian tomb. Message received loud and clear, although it only took the deaths of 6 people for us to realise. Now a lot of you will be familiar with the curse of the pharaohs and what happened with Tutankhamun's grave, so I will just recap really quickly. In 1922, Egyptologist Lord Carnarvon and archaeologist Howard Carter were the first to enter King Tut's tomb. Carnarvon died from a mosquito bite to the cheek shortly after the tomb was open. A similar mark was also found on the king. George J. Gold, Audrey Hepburn, Hugh Evelyn White, Aaron Ember and Archibald Douglas Reed also died shortly after coming into contact with the tomb or someone who had entered. It seems that outside the burial chamber was an inscription that read, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." Also found in the tomb was a warning on a bracelet that read, "Cursed be he who moves my body, to him shall come fire, water and pestilence." Now the man on the receiving end of this bracelet actually did have his house burned down, then when it was rebuilt it was hit by a flood. Interesting. Coming in at number 2, we have a curse upon the bullies. Well, Mary of Wallingport, Massachusetts certainly got the last word, didn't she? It seems that Mary C. Delancey was a nuisance in her community. She believed her neighbours were up to no good and she would shine lights into their properties. She owned a lot of cats and would spend hours feeding pigeons, which is kinda sweet, but it also seems like she was quite the recluse. She felt her neighbours bullied her and she was unwilling to let bygones be bygones. In one final act of revenge, she wrote on her tomb, "May eternal damnation be upon those in Wallingport who without knowing me have maliciously vilified me. May the curse of God be upon them and theirs." Cool. Just curse the whole community then. Cheers, babe. Mary died in 1985, and it seems that her curse got lost in the post, as the people of Wallingport don't believe they've come across any misfortune whatsoever. The woman who actually moved into Mary's old home said to a local newspaper that the curse didn't bother her. She said, "I was frankly saddened for this lady who must have had so much turmoil in her life that she'd put this on her gravestone." Another member of the community wrote, "Nobody even takes it seriously, of course. It's a funny thing. We all laugh about it." Ooh, rough ride for old Mary. Finally, coming into number 1, one tomb that should never have been disturbed, we have Tamerlane's Terror. Did it unleash Hitler? Maybe. Tamerlane founded the Timurid Empire in the 14th century, stretching across Central Asia and Persia. Tamerlane was also known as Timur and was buried in modern-day Uzbekistan, and his burial chamber was infiltrated by Soviets. Written on the wall, there was a very scary message indeed. "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble. Whomsoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." Now Tamerlane was indeed terrible. The Middle East and parts of India were ransacked with their populations massacred. So, did they heed this warning? Did they hell? Soviet anthropologists dug him up, and what happened? Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military operation of all time. Now, a lot of people were killed, to just put that extremely lightly. When Stalin found out, he actually had Tamerlane reburied with full Islamic rites. Days later, the Soviets eventually and finally won a battle at the Battle of Stalingrad. Hitler did continue to plague the world for another 3 years though. Is this why? Coming into number 10, we have this creepy angel skeleton. Also, it's alongside a really creepy hard-hitting message. Okay, I personally don't know what is creepier, this terrifying as F statue of basically a winged skeleton kissing the face of a stone corpse, or the inscription. The inscription reads, "The blood in his veins grows cold and all strength is gone. Faith has been extolled by his fall into the arms of death. Amen." I understand that for some people death isn't a jovial occasion, but can we maybe just chill out a little bit? This sobering statue can be found at Barcelona's Poblenou Cemetery, where I don't feel like I'm going to be taking a trip anytime soon. No thanks. Scary and really sad at number 9, we have this unidentified gravestone from Oskaloosa. This is in the Oskaloosa Pleasant View Cemetery in the United States. This stone reads, "Unidentified baby girl found in Delaware River, May 1977. That is so horrendously sad. The baby was never identified, and neither her parents or killer, if they were separate people, have ever been found either. Coming into number 8, this next tombstone is pretty much just a fancy way of saying you're next. It reads, "To the person passing by, as you are now, so once was I. As I am now, you soon will be. Prepare yourself and pray for me." Wait. As I am now, you soon will be, but like, Oscar, you're dead. Oh, I see. This tombstone is pretty much just a direct threat telling you that, yeah, you're gonna die. Who even needs words when you could just let the whole horrifying stone itself do the talking? Am I right? Coming into number 7, we have this very, very awake but dead baby. It is always depressingly sad when a baby dies, but is this any way to immortalize them? The baby is sitting bolt upright in a crib while a lamb that may or may not have been some kind of animal sacrifice lays at the foot of the bed. Hi there, cold dead baby stone eyes. Yeah, why are you following me wherever I go? I don't like it. I couldn't be near it. It's too much. Coming into number 6, we have a victim of the beast. If you visit the Salt Lake City Cemetery, you might not want to leave any flowers on Lily E. Grace's grave for fear of the repercussions. It seems like Lily, who died in November 1958, aged 77, was a victim of the beast, or so her gravestone says. They even added a 666 at the end of the inscription just to make it clear which beast she fell foul of. Weirdly, her husband is also buried at the same cemetery, but far away from his wife's corpse. The website WeirdUS.com claims a woman who walked on the grave later had an accident with her car door, which is spooky. I wanted to add something scary but like a little bit more fun at number 5. We have this descriptive cause of death. Back in the day, it was traditional to write a cause of death on a person's tombstone. Poor old George Spencer Millett, who lost his life by essentially being kissed to death, has this for a gravestone. That's right, George was just 15 when he fell foul of an ink eraser stabbing him to death. His tombstone basically does all of the talking and will tell you all about it. He was trying to escape birthday kisses from fellow office workers when he fell on the eraser ink. Weird. Obviously it is sad, but a deep dark part of me just loves this description on his gravestone. Another pretty frank and way less hilarious tombstone at number 4, we have pressed to death. Again, part of the descriptive tombstone category, it seems that Giles Corey was pressed to death, which is a really, really horrible way to go and makes reading his stone, like, really uncomfortable and claustrophobic. It turns out that he was actually murdered as part of the Salem witch trials, which makes his death even spookier. This gravestone can be found at the Charter Street Cemetery in Salem, Massachusetts. We have a murder victim's gravestone at number 3. I think like a murder victim's gravestone is always disconcerting. William Wood was murdered in Derbyshire, England in 1823. Not only that, he was actually pretty brutally murdered. The almost 200-year-old gravestone marks the spot where he was found dead and frankly tells the world that indeed he was murdered. He was here murdered, apparently. This is very chilling, and if you want to find it for yourself, it's between Disley and Whaley Bridge, but personally I wouldn't want to walk down there alone at night. Coming into number 2, putting the head into headstone, we have, I guess, this head in a stone. Ooh. Nothing sends a scarier tombstone message than a physical head in a box. The head belongs to the patron saint of venereal disease. Yes, there is a patron saint of venereal disease, which actually sends an even scarier message. The saint was Saint Vitalis of Assisi, who died in 1370. His name is on the case, but to be honest, I'm much less concerned with what is on the case than I am with what is in it. Finally, at number 1, we have an Ouija board headstone. So you know Ouija boards are used for contacting the dead, right? Well, what better place to do this than in a graveyard where, it's literally filled with dead people. Inventor of this spirit game, Elijah Bond, insisted on an Ouija board headstone for his own grave, which is very terrifying and very creepy. Imagine playing with that thing, absolutely no from me, get me far away from there. Thinking you'll miss it, but if you look closely, you'll see that our number 10 was murdered by human wolves. 1. Any gravestone outlining murder freaks me out, and 2. What the actual F are human wolves? So I was thinking that maybe it was something along the lines of werewolves. Now this is something that it seems that the residents of Conemaugh, Oklahoma, where you can find the grave, think. In fact, the grave has been subject to many an urban legend. The official story of the gravestone of Catherine Cross is that she had an illegal abortion and died. Her devastated parents considered her body to have been torn to shreds by a bad doctor, or wolf. Another terrifying murder tombstone, we have the headstone of Princess Doe at number 9. The body of a teenager was found at Cedar Ridge Cemetery along Route 94 in New Jersey in 1982. The girl was thought to be between 14 and 18 years old, and her cause of death was blunt force trauma. While her face was not recognizable, it was clear that the girl came from a reasonably affluent background. Despite that, nobody in the area reported a teen as missing. Her gravestone is sad and scary in equal parts. It reads, Princess Doe, missing from home, dead amongst strangers, remembered by all, born, ? Found July 15th, 1982. Now the stone is a living reminder that her killer, or indeed killers, are still out there. A spooky death rhyme makes these gravestones even spookier at number 8. This headstone reads, It does my heart a world of good to see you in a box of wood, aka a coffin. Now the owner of their headstone wants you to die, and that, it freaks me out, I can't lie. That or the person who organised the grave is confessing to murder, which also isn't great. Chill out though guys, it turns out this headstone is just a Halloween decoration. I should have known because I did see the creepy cobwebs in the background and it was just too good to be true. Coming into number 7, we have Baby Monster. I feel like I could be a good baby monster. I feel like this image was in our thumbnail for part 1, but I didn't include it in the actual video, so let's talk about this somewhat terrifying and cryptic baby monster tombstone. It seems that this tiny devil lived for just over 3 months and somehow managed to garner a bit of a rep in its short time on Earth. In actuality, whilst this does seem like the final resting place of a wee beastie, it seems that actually the tombstone can be found at the Saar Pioneer Cemetery in Washington. The story is that the child's surname was actually Monster, which is a bit unfortunate. I don't know, I could get on board with being called Rebecca Monster actually, it might be better than Rebecca Felgate. I shall henceforth be known as Rebecca Monster. This grave tells a horrible story at number 6. So here the tombstone reads, Eugene, found dead in 1929, buried 1964. So wait, if Eugene's body was found in 1929, what exactly was going on with it for 35 years? Well sadly, Eugene was a black man found dead by the side of the road in Ohio at a time when black human rights were not equally considered or treated with much respect. It seems that poor Eugene was then embalmed and put on display at the Littleton Funeral Home, where he became somewhat of a tourist attraction. How sad is that? Eventually in the mid-60s, he was finally laid to rest. Now if anyone's gonna haunt their grave, I would imagine it would be Eugene. Sometimes actions speak louder than words, and this grave is giving off one pretty scary physical message at number 5. Yeah, so this is George's Rodenbach's grave. Sometimes people are dead and buried, but George's seems to be suggesting that he is otherwise. Just look at him, climbing out of his grave like the creep that he is. Imagine being alone in that graveyard at night and seeing old George's tombstone, yikes. Stay dead, Georges, get back in there, your time is done. So with some of these tombstones we've done a little bit of digging to find out the story behind them, but no need with this absolute shocker at number 4, as basically the full story's laid out for us pretty damn clearly, and oh my god, it's terrifying. Wondering how Mary Jane McCune died? Just consult her headstone for further detail. So, as it reads, she was bitten by a rabid coyote, developed rabies, became violent, was smothered with a feather bed. When her husband returned, she and her unborn child were dead and buried. Like, TMI gravestone, you could just say loving mother, happy wife. I feel like maybe they were just kind of frank in the 1850s. Also, poor rabid pregnant Mary was only 17 when she died by the looks of things, which is really sad. Up next at number 3 we have the sad headstone of Ironfoot Eva. It seems that Eva was a 300-pound giantess and sideshow performer. Her tombstone can be found at Old Trappers Lodge in California, and it's scary for 2 reasons. 1, the cold dead eyes of her statue, and 2, the fact that the inscription suggests that she was murdered. It reads, Ironfoot Eva, 1800 to 1830, 300-pound giantess, poetess, singer and blacksmith, killed on her wedding day by unknown riflemen. Well, there's that. Ooh, very very sad at number 2, we simply have Specimens. This tombstone sends a pretty distinct and horrifyingly clinical message. Found in a mental health hospital cemetery in Columbus, Ohio, there are actually a pair of gravestones marked as simply specimens. What remains and who they belong to, we don't know. I'd feel pretty creeped out if I saw these tombstones for myself. It's largely suspected that the so-called specimens are the mutilated remains of bodies used for dissection. Like, call them by their name. So finally, this is the scariest headstone that I have ever seen at number 1. Now, a lot of these stones have told stories, but this one is enacting the murder scene. This just makes me so sad. We have Italino Lacamelli's gravestone. Italino was just a boy of 5 years old when he was murdered in 1925. He was happily in the garden playing with his hoop when he was murdered in broad daylight by a madman. His grave shows the moments before he dies, a happy boy with a hoop just doing his thing, but then he's chased by the scary hands of a killer coming to drag him into the underworld. Oh my god, like, I'm not okay. Okay, coming in at number 10 we have the planes that they died in. Hey, this gives me the serious creeps. In a graveyard deep in the woods surrounding the Amari Air Base, you will find a pilot's graveyard where the bodies of Soviet-era airmen who died are buried with the tail fin of the planes that they crashed in. It's really really sad, honestly. The tail of the plane that they crashed in is their tombstone. The effect of the fins is that the graveyard kind of looks like it's filled with ground sharks. It's truly haunting and very real when you realize that these are the actual wreckages and they're marking the graves of the dead. It becomes horrifyingly imaginable. Coming in at number 9 we have the Circle of Life. The Circle of Life is a beautiful thing. As we know from the first law of thermodynamics, energy can't be created or destroyed, just transferred. When we die, the energy we had in our bodies is transferred into the soil. We're worm food. The worms are then of course eaten by birds and so on and so forth. It's the Circle of Life. While this is a lovely notion, the gravestone makes the Circle of Life sound rather literal and terrifying. Having passed in 1728 at the age of 42, what does JSD get on his gravestone? Oh, here lies Scott, left here to rot. Very, very literal. Coming in at number 8 we have The Mistake. Trial by mob is never ideal, especially when that trial gets you killed. It seems that George Johnson was murdered by locals who only realized the error of their ways when it was too late. The Boot Hill Cemetery in Arizona is famous for being the final resting place for a number of Wild West characters, including the McLaury brothers and Billy Clayton. But this point on this list is all about George. George bought a stolen horse without realizing that it was stolen. He was then sentenced to death despite him being totally innocent. His handmade tomb message reads, "Here lies George Johnson hanged by mistake in 1882. He was right, we were wrong, but we strung him up and now he's gone." Descriptive. Spooky. Scary or kind of funny, you decide. We have the beard at number 7. So I mean, persecution is never funny, like absolute hardline no to persecution. but persecuted for wearing a beard. With that information presented along with this lovely stone carving, I have to say I was strangely darkly amused, or I guess the right word is bemused. Poor Joseph Palmer loved his beard, even though it was not in fashion in his lifetime in the early 1800s. It seems his local preacher even accused him of consorting with the devil because of his facial hair. In 1830, Palmer was attacked by a mob outside Fitchburg in Massachusetts. Why? Because he had a beard. They were armed with razors and scissors and they attempted to forcibly shave him. He ended up stabbing 2 of his attackers, lightly if there is such a thing as a light stabbing. He was then jailed and placed in solitary confinement for 15 months. Now his tombstone depicts him with his lovely beard and I'm really happy that he stood up for his facial hair to the very end. Long live the beard. Coming in at number 6, I'm not sure what to name this point other than the pie? What a horrible way to go. Not only did Sir Geoffrey Hudson get a piddly little grave plaque, it is also very descriptive in the creepiest of ways. It seems that Sir Geoffrey had dwarfism, but still made it to the age of 63, which in the 1600s was great, even for those born without a defect. How did Sir Geoffrey go though? Well, his grave says it all. A dwarf presented in a pie to King Charles I. What a way to go. To be fair, the grave doesn't actually make it clear if this is the way he died or if this was the way he was best known. Either way, it is pretty disconcerting. King Charles I, by the way, was said to be wicked and tyrannical. He was bareheaded, so he kind of got what was coming to him. His coffin's in St George's Chapel in Windsor, UK. Coming in at number 5, we have the explosion. I feel like the descriptive gravestones are absolutely the gnarliest. There are a lot of them on this list. Have a listen to the tale of poor Ellen Shannon. Her stone says that she died aged 26 after being fatally burned on the 21st of March 1870 by the explosion of a lamp filled with Danforth's so-called non-explosive burning fluid. I do enjoy that the gravestone makes it clear the brand at fault and calls them out for their false advertising. This is like the sassy TripAdvisor or Twitter comment of the olden days. Although, to be totally fair, the poor woman did die, so it makes it pretty sad. If you want to see this spooky grave for yourself, it is in Girard Cemetery in Pennsylvania. Coming in at number 4, we have the Weeping Woman of Michigan. Okay, like first and foremost, this statue is terrifying from the off. A giant stone woman standing with her arms spread. I can certainly live without her. So this is a statue of the Virgin Mary who has been placed in Battle Creek's Oak Hill Cemetery. Legend has it that she cries real tears every Sunday night, and also apparently on Halloween and during a full moon. The under of her eyes are found to be wet on frequent occasions despite there being no discernible reason. I guess no discernible reason other than she's a spooky statue, and why not? Maybe she's haunted, maybe she's just sad. What scary message is she trying to send? I'm not sure I want to know. We have this killer at number 3, we have Robert Clay Allison. Now it seems that Robert Clay Allison died aged 47 in 1887. He was probably actually pretty young back then. Perhaps it was someone seeking revenge, as it seems that good old Rob was a bit of a social justice warrior, and that's to put it politely. To put it less politely, he was likely a murderer. His grave reads, "He never killed a man that didn't need killing." Either way, who died and made Robert chief of executions? Maybe it was someone that he killed. The swine. Coming in at number 2, we have What They Know. What happens after we die? Well, there isn't really anyone alive who can definitely answer that question. The only people that know are the billions of people who have died over the course of history, also including the owner of this gravestone. Simple yet effective, it reads, "Now I know something that you don't." Ooh, well they very well just might, or they might not, depending on what actually happens. I like the mysticism though. If you were anywhere near as disgruntled as Mary C. Dolency, then you may have left some terse words on your gravestone to your neighbours too. Finally coming into number 1, we have The Curse. Ooh dear, Mary was a bit of a crazy cat lady stereotype. She hated her neighbours, she would shine lights in their faces and start feuds, and yes, she had a lot of pets, although she did leave all of her money to the Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Animal Cruelty. So actually, that really was pretty nice of her. Good on ya. But sadly, she did also leave something not so nice behind, a curse to her community. Hooray! On her tombstone is written, "May eternal damnation be upon those in Whaling Port who without knowing me have maliciously vilified me. May the curse of God be upon them and theirs." I'm sorry, what? Do you want to chill out? May the curse of God be upon them. Ooh. It seems though that her tombstone is all talk. Locals say they don't believe they're cursed, which is good news. So guys, that was the top 10 scary tombstone messages part 3. I do have a little bonus one for you. Now I'm almost certain it's fake, but it made me laugh, so I wanted to share it with you. Check this out. It reads, "Died from not forwarding that text message to 10 people. Ah, they're the facts. Do people still do this? Like, I'm an adult these days, would you believe? So I haven't been on the receiving end of like a chain email threatening death or a chain text. You know, the ones that say if you don't forward it to 73 people under the light of a full moon, then Momo will eat your mum. Like, I haven't seen one of those in a long time, but are they still happening? Let me know. Have any of you not forwarded one and lived to tell the tale? I'm pretty sure that I have. Okay, so this is officially the end of the graves, but before we get out of here, I wanted to read some comments from our part 2, because why not make a trip back to April 2018? Here is what you guys had to say. Adam Ledensky said, "I live in Salem, Massachusetts. Do I believe in ghosts? I've seen them, so yeah, I believe in ghosts." Ooh, tell us more. Dan Abnormal said, "Thumbs up for Rebecca Monster." I honestly can no longer remember what this is a reference to, but 306 of you left the thumbs up, so Rebecca Monster it is. One of you guys answered my question about the mystery body of Eugene who wasn't buried for over 20 years. Now the comment was actually pretty horrifying. Frogs wrote, "Eugene was put up on display in the funeral home in the hope that he would be recognized by someone. The funeral home used him as a decoration during Halloween and teenagers would take him out for rides. He was eventually put to rest because he was losing fingers and just generally starting to fall apart, and I think it was about time for it." Blimey, that is horrifying! Arctic Ridge said, "The only scary thing here is the host." Thanks very much. Thank you very much. So guys, that concludes that. Please do leave me a comment in the comment section for a chance to be featured in an upcoming video. Also, shout out to Lance Hafeen from Buns. Hooray! Thank you so much for watching this video. Once again, do leave a thumbs up, share it with a friend. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and I'll see you next time. Bye!